Well, hi everybody. Okay, I have a little bit of sun shining in here, so I'll twist this away a little bit. I'm gonna do about 5 to 7 minutes today on our first topic. Thank you so much for all of you who have given suggestions and for topics to discuss. Today we're going to talk about conscious playing. What are we thinking about as we play a song, as we're working on a song, learning a song, memorizing a song, performing, playing our technique routines? What are we thinking about? Now, conscious memory, or conscious playing, period, as a concept is a really, really big concept. So we can talk about little individual aspects of this a lot as time goes on. But today, a first introduction to this conscious playing concept is, what are we thinking about as we're playing? I think it's very common to oftentimes sit down and just start wiggling the fingers and not paying attention to what we're thinking about and what we're doing, and not paying attention to what we're paying attention to as we work. So really, really important first place to start. And anybody that's worked with me, any students, learners, adult learners that have worked with me know that this is a mantra for me. And you'll hear that 1,000 times. What are you thinking about right now? What are you thinking about as you play this section? What are you thinking about as you work on this? We find oftentimes that our response is nothing. I wasn't thinking about anything actually, or I don't know what I was thinking about, or well, I was thinking about how I was nervous to play this song, or I was thinking about how this part's really hard. And none of those responses are really actually musical thoughts necessarily, thinking about anything musical whatsoever. So we can really, really progress and expedite our progress on anything that we're doing by increasing our level of consciousness, being very, very intentional and direct about what it is that we're thinking about as we work on that aspect of whatever we're doing. So that's the question for today. What are we thinking about? In the future, we're going to talk about a lot of different musical things that are helpful to think about as we're practicing or playing or working on something, performing. But let's just say that the biggest concept here is that we need to be thinking about something musical. So a challenge to you, a challenge to me, a challenge to all of us as we're working this week is, hey, make a decision about something musical that you're going to think about as you're working. So, for instance, let me give you an example. If you're working, right now it's Christmas season, so a lot of Christmas tunes going around. Let's say we're working out an arrangement for the tune Joy to the World. Just fiddling around in the key of C. I'm not always going to show you the keyboard because a lot of times I want you to really use your ear and work on the sound. Think about the sound element of music, okay? So this is a great example of really focusing on the sound. Maybe you're reading an arrangement of Joy to the World. Maybe you are figuring it out by ear. Maybe you're working on your own arrangement. However you are approaching the work on this particular piece, you might say, well, I'm going to choose to think about the melodic sequence, the first melodic sequence. So going to a different key, and we might observe as we're thinking about the first melodic sequence, we might observe that this starts at the beginning, at the top of a scale, and steps down to the bottom of the scale, straight down. And then we might take that a step further and notice, oh, okay, so we would call that do, ti, la, so, fa, mi, re, do, stepping down a scale. And we might make further observations as we think about that first sequence. If I come down here, new key, do, ti, la, so, fa, mi, re, do, do, ti, la, so, fa, mi, re, do. I might choose to think about it that way. I might choose to think about it line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space, as far as what it might look like on a staff, or space, line, space, line, space, line, space, line, or I just might go top stepping down and keep stepping down, right? There's any number of different ways that you can think about and you can look and hear and feel and experience the first melodic phrase. But you got to make a decision about what is it that you're going to think about and look and feel and experience. So that might be your choice. You might say, well, I'm going to think about and feel and see and experience the first melodic phrase. And then you begin to explore that. And we begin to explore different ways that we can feel the first melodic phrase. So we might say, well, I'm in the key of A major here, and I'm feeling a white key and two black keys, and then two white keys, another black, and then two white keys. It might be a way that we think about how this is feeling as it comes down. We might think about what it sounds like. I'm hearing sounds just stepping down, just drifting down like a leaf falling down from a tree, or a snowflake if we're talking about Christmas time, okay? What does that sound like to you? That's a way to think about how it sounds. As I mentioned earlier, if we're thinking about, well, what does this look like up on the staff, up on music? Well, we can think about how it would look like a sequence of lines and spaces. One sound for each line and space. Line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space. That would be how I'm thinking about what it might look like up on staff. We could think about the finger numbers and say, well, I'm in the key of A major, so I'm starting at the top of my hand, and I'm going to think about what finger numbers I'm using here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. I am sure you could come up with so many more suggestions about the way that we could think about that and experience that first melodic sequence. Something that simple. See, just the first sequence of Joy to the World. So this is what I mean by you got to decide what you're going to think about, okay? That's the first thing. And that backs up to the big concept of conscious playing. So there's your charge for this week. I just want to make these really short so you can sit down in a short sitting and get a little something to work on. So that's our thought for this week. Conscious playing. What are you thinking about? And let me give you an admonition. Think about something musical. Okay? What are you thinking about when you're working on this? Choose something musical to think about. So my example for you was, if we're working on the first phrase of Joy to the World, we're going to, maybe we choose to think about and experience the melodic sequence, and then I proceeded to give you several examples of ways that we could think about the first melodic sequence. How does this sequence feel? How does it sound? How does it look? What are my fingers going to do? We could say, what key am I going to play this in? Move it around to different keys. What would it feel like if I was playing it in F, starting with a forefinger as a descending scale, versus in the key of E, starting with a pinky finger in a descending scale. Okay, so all of that comes from your initial choice of what musical thing am I going to think about as I work on this. So there's your thoughts for today. Thank you very much for giving suggestions. Continue to message me or put suggestions below on things we can talk about in future weeks. Of course, I'm Ashley Bradford. I'm at Skype Adult Piano Lessons here on Facebook, and I'm at skypeadultpianolessons.com on the internet. I do a private one-on-one webcam or Skype lessons for people all around the world, as well as some folks locally here in my studio here in Mesa as well. So have a wonderful week. Feel free to put any comments or suggestions or questions that you have below. Have a really fun week exploring conscious playing and making some really powerful decisions about what musical thoughts that you're going to focus on as you work. Have a great week.